I am surprised it is going over to Apple. I thought F1 and Liberty Media would want to stay involved with ESPN. They've done such a good job for the sport. The numbers have been really solid. I thought that maybe ESPN would have come up somewhere between 110 and 120, maybe in that 115 area, but they stayed disciplined. 150, though, ESPN was never going to do that. And if that's where the deal ends up for Apple, and that's what F1 wants, they want to take the money, let them have at it. Let's see how the deal works out.
No, 1,000%.
All right, let's get to the big event this week. That was MLB All-Star in Atlanta, like we talked about at the top of the show. I watched that All-Star game, Molly, and it was really cool seeing the swing off there at the end. It was a free home run derby for fans. I wish that didn't start at 11:38, 11:40 p.m. on the East Coast, but it was so cool to watch. Everybody off the benches, both sides. It was really cool. You got to give kudos for Major League Baseball for the execution there.
Austin, I also wish it didn't start at 11:38 p.m. because I missed it. I read about it Wednesday morning. I had to go to bed. And I understand why you started at 8 p.m. That's prime time, perfect TV window. But for the casual fan like me, I'm not going to stay up that late.
And for kids, if you're trying to attract kids, like that's tough getting them to stay up that late to watch what is something really cool. I know it's the summer. I know they don't have school, but a lot of parents, they're putting their kids to bed before 11:40 at night.
Did your kids watch with you?
They did not. They were at a concert, actually. So, they were probably staying up late anyways.
So what I'm hearing is your kids are cooler than you.
Oh, absolutely. That's 1,000%. We're recording this before we have the number for the All-Star game itself, but we did see a number for the Home Run Derby on ESPN, ESPN2. That was up 5% from last year, but it didn't get to 6 million viewers. I thought with getting away from the RNC, which it had to compete with last year, getting more out-of-home numbers, full out-of-home measurement by Nielsen in 2025, I thought that it was easily going to crack 6 million viewers. Are you surprised it didn't get across the threshold there?
Now, Austin, I'm not really surprised. I only tuned in for a little bit of it. It's not surprising that it's up a little bit over last year. You gave the reason it's not competing with RNC or anything. I was actually reading Wednesday morning when I was reading about the All-Star game is that the guys were loving kind of that swing off. And some of the bigger names have expressed interest in competing in the Home Run Derby next year. So there is a chance you get those bigger names where you will see the bigger growth.
Well, Molly, another big MLB event as part of this All-Star weekend was the MLB Draft on Sunday night. That's obviously with ESPN and MLB Network, around 776,000 viewers. I still think that this event should be going higher. This is almost half of what the WNBA draft did this year. And I know there are some marquee names there with Paige Beckers driving that higher, but I think MLB really has to continue to drive up the interest in this event, market those young stars a little better. I know it's tough because a lot of them are coming out of high school, and ESPN is doing a better job showing more of its college baseball, so some of the college names. But then we also have to take a step back and be like, what's the future of where this is going to be now that it's going to be leaving ESPN? When that came back in 2020, the draft has now averaged a little over 800,000 viewers between ESPN and MLB Network. Before that, you're talking about well under 500,000 viewers. That's probably going to be smaller than something like the NHL draft that's out there. So MLB has to continue to get visibility on that event.
It also comes back to the regionality in baseball, right? Baseball is by far the most localized sport. You don't necessarily have that national interest for who the A's are picking first. And you make a good point. I didn't know half the names in the draft, probably more than half, because a lot of these kids are...
You and me both, and I'm a big baseball fan. I didn't know half these kids.
And Austin, you mentioned it. The MLB draft media rights are up for grabs. But my question is it a good media property? And you brought it up that since it went over to ESPN, it has averaged 800,000, down a little bit this year. But where do you think it could possibly land if not with ESPN?
Maybe this is something that does go back to ESPN. I'd say it's maybe the lowest hanging fruit of the properties that are part of ESPN right now. If we're talking about the first round of the playoffs, if we're talking about Sunday Night Baseball, if we're talking about the Home Run Derby itself, it feels like a throw-in a little bit. So maybe this is something that could stay with ESPN. They love doing drafts. You've written about that in your newsletter. And the final thing I'll say about this ESPN package of rights that's leaving, we're hearing that maybe it's Fox that's going to be interested in grabbing the Derby, and they can really own this entire All-Star weekend, have the All-Star game, have the Derby, really make it a big event. So interested to watch what happens there.
Fox would be a natural home for the Derby, especially with All-Star. You just said that, but I agree. Austin, another big event this weekend, Wimbledon. So you had the women's singles and the men's singles. What do you make of those numbers?
I was kind of surprised about how strong, especially the men's number was. This was the first time since 2002 that somebody not named Andy Murray, Novak Djokovic, Rafa Nadal, or Roger Federer weren't in the final at Wimbledon. So Jannik Sinner, Carlos Alcaraz, it was 4 sets, did around 2.9 million viewers. That's above what I thought it was going to be, up from last year. I think that was a straight sets Alcaraz win over Djokovic. So yeah, it impressed me. And now we've seen this in consecutive finals. They were the finalists at Roland Garros. So can they really develop the next iteration of a strong rivalry there on the men's side? I'm interested to watch Sinner and Alcaraz if they can drive the numbers. Clearly, Wimbledon did show that. U.S. Open, I'm paying attention to next. Molly, on the women's side, I was not surprised that there was a sharp drop for the final there. Iga Swiatek, 6-love over Amanda Anisimova, an American, but not a well-known name. A lot of those well-known Americans on the women's side in particular were out early. This was among the lowest ladies finals in the post-pandemic area, so not surprising given the score.
Yeah, exactly. It just wasn't competitive at all, and you didn't have that name recognition. This is actually only the second time in the women's singles history at Wimbledon where you had that score. The last was in 1983.
But taking a step back, if you're ESPN, you got to be happy with how Wimbledon performed. Its best audience in 6 years for the event. Considering that you don't have those big four around anymore, I think it's a win for ESPN for the event.
All eyes on U.S. Open.
You know, one thing I'll say about tennis, though, is that Washington Post article that kind of ripped into John McEnroe. That was Sally Jenkins. A lot of people in our newsroom were talking about it. A lot of people just in sports media talking about it. And it just gets to the point, like, are we done with John McEnroe? Do we need him as a tennis analyst anymore? Is he adding anything for viewers, or is it just a name that people know? Should we get fresh blood in there?
According to Sally, yes. That article was brutal. I was reading that, and I was very thankful my name was not John McEnroe.
Well, Molly, let's switch over to the NBA briefly. Just want to talk about that number for Cooper Flagg's debut, taking on Bronny James and the Lakers. I really thought it was going to cross 1 million viewers, ended up just south of that, but still, 4th best NBA Summer League audience on record. Any surprise for you?
Not really. We've talked about it since the NBA draft. Those are two recognizable names. I mean, Cooper Flagg is a superstar. I don't want to say he's the next face of the NBA, but he might be.
He might be right now, yeah.
What surprised me was the cost of tickets. Last week, I checked out the new ESPN studios in Manhattan, and I'm not going to say who said it, but there were a couple analysts that were talking during a commercial break about how tickets for that were $3,000, and they wouldn't even pay $300 to go see a Summer League game in person.
Yeah, it's Summer League. There's a lot of not great basketball going on. I mean, Cooper Flagg looked great, and he's obviously by now, he's been shut down. They've seen enough after a 31-point effort. That's a lot of money for a Summer League game that really has no bearing.
And just, I got to plug Northwestern in here in Austin. We had a second round, number 44 pick, Brooks Barnheiser with the Thunder. Probably not going to make the roster, but he's having a hell of a Summer League season so far.
Well, I'm sure he's going to be a fantastic player in the G League or for some Greek or Spanish team next season. So good luck to him out there. And Molly, our colleague Tom Friend, who's out in Vegas at Summer League, reported on some comments from Commissioner Adam Silver about the league's plans for this national RSN package, something they can do to really help out teams. What did you make of the development?
Well, as we said last week, I still dislike the idea of a national, like just the wording of a national streaming RSN. Feels like an oxymoron. But good reporting from Tom. Commissioner Silver said that it's a prereq for league expansion, but it might not be until the 2027-28 season when about 20 teams could opt in. Initially, it seemed like when the league was negotiating that $77 billion national rights deal last year, it could have come in there. But the league wanted to wait and negotiate higher end deals with some of the streaming guys like Amazon or Apple, ESPN, Peacock, all of that.
They also have some situations to work out with ownership, like what's going to happen with the Trailblazers. Are they even going to stay in Portland? And why resolve any sort of local streaming situation in the market if maybe they're going to be moving to Seattle? So what does that all look like? Lots of questions to answer, and who might carry this sort of NBA national, local? I do agree. It's an oxymoron to try to talk about it. Very confusing.
And the result of it not being part of that and national media deal that was done last year is that teams had to figure out their own over-the-air D2C combination, which it would be helpful for the teams and the league if they had that big national package.